The courtroom was silent, but the weight of the verdict still hung heavy in the air. I stood there, calm yet resolute, as the judge announced the sentence. My brother was going to prison. Months ago, I was the one who took the fall for his crime. No outburst, no tears, only a quiet fire burning beneath my composed exterior. Around me, family faces twisted in shock and disbelief. "How could you?" whispered my sister, disbelief cracking her voice. But I knew the truth. They never saw the storm I'd been preparing for. This wasn't just about justice. It was my reckoning, and I was ready to take control. Before we start, type "ouch" if you've ever dreamed of getting revenge but never got the chance. No judgment here, and hit that subscribe button. We don't let betrayal slide around here, not even from people who don't subscribe. Let's continue. The verdict had barely settled when the reality of everything hit me with a weight that no courtroom drama could capture. I'm Clara, 34, an accountant with a meticulous streak that's earned me a solid reputation at the auditing firm I've dedicated years to. My life, until recently, was a steady rhythm of numbers, reports, and late nights poring over ledgers. Outside the office, I was the eldest daughter in a family that leaned heavily on tradition and appearances. Mark, my younger brother by 3 years, was the golden boy, the reckless risk-taker who everyone believed would soar no matter what. I was the opposite. Steady, reliable, the one who made sure everything balanced, until he pulled me under. The day it all came crashing down, my sister Anna found me alone in the hallway just outside the courtroom. Her eyes were red-rimmed, her voice shaky as she whispered, "Clara, why did you take the fall? You're not the one who should be punished." I looked at her, feeling the familiar ache of betrayal cutting deeper than the sentence itself. "Anna," I said quietly, "I thought I was protecting everyone. I believed if I covered for Mark he'd fix his mistakes, but I was wrong." She shook her head, disbelief mingling with frustration. "And now, you sent him to prison." I didn't respond immediately. Instead, I let the silence speak, a calm that masked the storm brewing inside me. "Sometimes," I finally said, "protecting yourself is the only way forward." Back at the office, whispers followed me like shadows. Linda, my manager, approached cautiously as I sat at my desk, scanning a financial report. "Clara, I heard about the trial. Are you holding up okay?" she asked, her voice low with genuine concern. I met her gaze steadily. "I'm managing. It's been a long road." She hesitated, then added, "If you need anything, time, support, you just have to ask." I nodded, grateful for her kindness but resolute not to show weakness. Raj, my closest colleague, dropped by moments later, offering a small smile. "If you ever want to talk or need a break, I'm here." His words, simple but sincere, reminded me that I wasn't entirely alone. "Thank you, Raj. That means a lot." At home, the atmosphere was heavy. My mother's voice trembled as she confronted me in the kitchen. "Clara, why didn't you tell us what Mark did? Why keep this burden all to yourself?" I looked at her, the lines of worry etched deeply across her face. "I wanted to protect you all," I explained, "and I believed Mark could change. But when I uncovered the truth, I had no choice." My father, sitting silently nearby, spoke softly. "Sometimes, love means standing firm, even against your own blood." Their words cut through the tension, but also reminded me of the impossible position I'd been placed in. Mark's betrayal wasn't just a family matter, it was a calculated deception that threatened everything I'd built. He'd embezzled money from the very company I worked for, confident I would take the fall. When the audit uncovered the discrepancies, I was arrested, blindsided by his cowardice. But even behind bars, I refused to be a victim. I began quietly gathering evidence, leveraging every connection and resource available. Rachel, my lawyer, met me in a cold, sterile room. "Clara, we need solid proof, bank statements, emails, anything tying Mark directly to the crime." I nodded, feeling the first flicker of hope. "I've been reviewing company records I managed to save before the arrest. There are anomalies no one's noticed." Rachel smiled, a rare warmth in the midst of the chaos. "Good. We'll build a case that no one can deny." Meanwhile, back at the firm, I reached out discreetly to trusted colleagues. James, a senior auditor known for his integrity, pulled me aside one afternoon. "I've seen some irregularities too," he whispered. "If you want, I can help you dig deeper." His offer was a lifeline, a reminder that even in darkness, allies exist. The web of deceit stretched wide, family loyalty clashed with harsh truths, and beneath my calm exterior, plans were taking shape. I wasn't just the sister who fell. I was the one who would rise, armed with intelligence, resolve, and the unshakable certainty that justice would prevail. "The calm you see," It's not surrender, it's the quiet before the storm. And I am ready. The moment I stepped out of the courtroom, the weight of everything pressed down harder than ever. But unlike the way others expected me to crumble, I felt a strange calm settle inside. A cold, deliberate calm that wasn't born from resignation, but from control. The truth was, I'd anticipated this moment long before the gavel fell. This was never just about taking the blame, it was the beginning of something far bigger. The faces around me blurred, the curious onlookers, the reporters, my family, all expecting tears or outrage. Instead, I moved with measured steps toward my sister Anna, who had been pacing nervously nearby. "Clara," she said, voice shaking, "I don't understand. Why didn't you scream, fight back? You just stood there like it was nothing." I looked at her steadily. Sometimes screaming doesn't solve anything. I needed to stay in control. Losing my temper wouldn't have helped anyone. Anna's eyes searched mine, desperate for some crack in the armor. "But it hurts, doesn't it? Knowing Mark let you take the fall, how do you stay so calm?" I smiled faintly, a quiet edge beneath the softness. "Because I'm not done yet. This was never the end. I've been gathering evidence, talking to lawyers. What happened here today is just the opening move." She blinked, clearly surprised. "You planned this all along." I nodded. "I had to. Mark's betrayal isn't just a family scandal, it's a crime. And I intend to make sure he pays the price." Later, I met with Raj at a quiet cafe near the office. The noise around us faded as I explained, carefully choosing my words. "Raj, you have no idea how deep this goes. Mark's been siphoning funds for months, and I was left to clean up the mess." Raj frowned, anger flickering in his eyes. "That's outrageous. How could he do this to you, to the company?" I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "He's a master manipulator, but I'm not going to let him get away with it." Raj leaned forward, lowering his voice. "If you need help, I'm in. I can access internal files, audit trails, anything that can back your case." His offer was a lifeline. "Thank you, Raj, this means more than you know." Back at home, the tension was different but no less intense. My mother sat at the kitchen table, hands trembling as she held a cup of tea. "Clara, I'm scared. What if Mark fights back? What if this tears the family apart?" I took her hands gently. "Mom, I know it won't be easy, but protecting the truth means protecting ourselves. Sometimes the hardest battles save us from even worse pain." My father, ever the quiet pillar, nodded in agreement. "You've always been the strong one, Clara. Now it's time for the rest of us to stand with you." That night, as I sat alone in my room, my phone buzzed with a message from Rachel, my lawyer. "Found more discrepancies in the financial reports. Meet tomorrow to review." I felt a surge of determination. Every piece of evidence was a weapon, every new discovery a step closer to justice. The next day, Rachel and I pored over spreadsheets and email threads, identifying patterns of deceit that no one else had dared to see. "Mark's been covering his tracks carefully, but there's always a trace," she said, eyes sharp and focused. "We'll expose everything." I nodded, feeling a rare flicker of hope. This time the truth will come out. And I'll be the one telling the story. Meanwhile, James, my trusted colleague, sent a quick message. "Meeting at 3 p.m., got something you need to see." When we met, he handed me a folder thick with audit notes and flagged transactions. "This should help," he said quietly. "Mark's mistakes are buried deep, but they're there." Gripping the folder, I felt the tides turning. I wasn't the helpless sister anymore, I was the architect of a reckoning. The calm that enveloped me wasn't denial, it was preparation. Every step I took, every quiet conversation I held was building toward the day I would confront Mark, not as a victim, but as the one who would bring him down. Because beneath the surface I wasn't broken. I was becoming unstoppable. The calm I maintained was the product of countless hours spent peeling back layers of deception. What began as a simple act of quiet resilience evolved into a calculated mission, one where every detail mattered and every ally counted. I knew that to undo Mark's betrayal, I had to uncover truths so undeniable they would leave no room for doubt. My partnership with Rachel, my lawyer, quickly became the cornerstone of this effort. We met frequently, often in her cramped office lined with shelves of legal tomes and case files. One afternoon, she leaned forward, her eyes sharp beneath her glasses. "Clara, the bank statements you brought last week confirm some serious discrepancies. Mark's been transferring funds to an offshore account for months. If we can get a court order to freeze those assets, it'll hit him where it hurts." I nodded, heart pounding with cautious hope. "Do we have anything tying those transfers directly to him?" Rachel smiled faintly. "Yes, I subpoenaed his emails. there's correspondence between him and the offshore account managers using coded language. It's enough to build a solid case. With that, our focus sharpened. I began combing through every financial report I had access to before my arrest, cross-referencing with data Rachel gathered. The numbers didn't lie. Hidden transactions, forged signatures, falsified contracts. It was a web of deceit far more extensive than I had imagined. One evening, I met with James and Raj at a small coffee shop. The dim lighting and quiet hum of conversation felt worlds away from the tension I carried. James slid a folder across the table. These are internal memos and transaction logs. Some of the dates overlap with the transfers Rachel found. I think you'll find this useful. Raj added, I've also pulled some audit trails that were overlooked in the initial investigation. There's a pattern to Mark's moves. He's been trying to cover his tracks, but mistakes are everywhere. I sifted through the papers, the weight of the evidence both daunting and empowering. This is exactly what we need, I said quietly. We have to present this methodically so there's no chance for him to weasel out. As the pieces fell into place, I realized how crucial it was to keep our operation discreet. Word getting out too soon could jeopardize everything. I limited my conversations to trusted confidants and met Rachel in secure locations. Our next step was preparing for the legal battle ahead. Back home, the personal cost of this mission was undeniable. My parents oscillated between worry and reluctant support. One night, my mother pressed her hand against mine. Clara, it's hard to see you carry so much. Promise me you'll take care of yourself too. I smiled softly. I will, Mom. This is about protecting all of us, including you and Dad. I can't let Mark's actions destroy what little family we have left. My father's quiet nod was his way of showing solidarity. We're behind you no matter what. The emotional toll was balanced by the surge of purpose. I wasn't just fighting for justice, I was reclaiming my dignity and the truth of my own story. Rachel and I began drafting legal motions to freeze assets and subpoena additional records. This will put pressure on Mark, she explained during one meeting. He won't be able to hide for long. With each new document and revelation, my confidence grew. I coordinated with James and Raj to ensure all technical evidence was airtight, ready for presentation in court. Their expertise was invaluable, turning raw data into a clear, compelling narrative. One afternoon, Rachel handed me a file with a grave expression. I've spoken with a forensic accountant who can testify to the patterns of fraud. Having an expert on our side strengthens our case significantly. I felt a surge of gratitude. Thank you, Rachel, we're ready for whatever comes next. Behind every legal move, I maintained a steady facade. But inside, I was meticulously preparing for the confrontation that would come. The moment when I would face Mark not as the sister who took the fall, but as the woman who brought the truth to light. In the quiet moments, I reflected on the journey. From betrayal to silent investigation, from victim to strategist, I had transformed. The calm was no longer just a shield, it was the foundation of my power. And as the plan crystallized, I understood one thing clearly. This wasn't just about sending Mark to prison. It was about reclaiming control of my life and making sure that justice was not a whispered hope but a decisive reality. With our plan firmly in place, the shift from silent preparation to decisive action was both exhilarating and daunting. The days following the court's verdict were a whirlwind of legal maneuvers, strategic outreach, and careful orchestration. Every move had to be precise, there was no room for error, no margin for hesitation. Mark's betrayal had forced me into a new role, not just a victim but a relentless force determined to reclaim what was rightfully mine. Rachel was the first to spearhead the offensive. One crisp morning, she sent a series of legal letters to Mark's known associates, demanding the immediate freezing of his offshore accounts and the suspension of any transactions linked to the embezzlement. This is the preemptive strike, she explained when we met to review the responses. Cutting off his access to the funds will destabilize him financially, and that's where we have the advantage. I nodded, feeling the surge of momentum. It was time to rally every ally I had, those who had quietly stood by during the darkest days. James and Raj were indispensable in this phase. James coordinated with the firm's internal audit team to secure additional documents, while Raj worked behind the scenes, leveraging his technical expertise to trace every questionable transaction. One afternoon, Raj pulled me aside during a brief meeting. Clara, we've identified a network of shell companies Mark used to funnel money. If we expose these connections publicly, it could put immense pressure on him. His tone was cautious but hopeful. I met his gaze steadily. Let's prepare a detailed report for the court. Transparency is our weapon. Raj smiled, the first real sign of relief I'd seen on him in weeks. At the same time, I began assembling a network of support beyond the courtroom. I reached out to trusted business partners and friends, letting them know I was taking control. Among them was Maria, a longtime friend and financial advisor. Over coffee, she reassured me. Clara, you're doing the right thing. Mark's actions affect more than just your family, they threaten the company's stability. People need to see that you're the one who's protecting them. Her confidence bolstered my own resolve. I realized that this fight wasn't just personal, it was about safeguarding a future for everyone involved. Meanwhile, Mark's response was predictable but telling. His lawyer sent a sharply worded letter accusing me of fabricating evidence and attempting to ruin his reputation. I shared the letter with Rachel, who remained unfazed. We expected this, she said calmly. It's a distraction tactic, our evidence is solid. True to form, Mark himself avoided direct confrontation. But when we finally arranged a preliminary hearing to discuss the frozen assets and evidence, his demeanor cracked. Sitting across from me in the tense courtroom room, his usual charm replaced by unease, he tried to intimidate with sharp words. You think you can destroy me, he sneered. You've ruined your own life chasing this vendetta. I met his gaze without flinching. I'm not the one who ruined anything. You made your choices, now you'll face the consequences. The exchange was electric, an unspoken battle of wills where calm and determination met denial and desperation. Watching Mark falter behind his bravado only strengthened my conviction. This was no longer about family loyalty, it was about justice. As the legal process accelerated, Rachel coordinated with expert witnesses who testified on the financial irregularities. Their detailed reports and clear explanations dismantled Mark's attempts to shift blame. Each day, the courtroom drama deepened, the air thick with tension and the weight of truth unfolding. Outside court, my support network rallied. Linda, my manager, offered quiet encouragement, reminding me that my professional reputation remained intact. People see who you really are, Clara, don't let this break you. Her words grounded me. Despite the chaos, I still had a career to rebuild, a life to reclaim. One evening, after a long day of depositions and evidence review, Maria called. Clara, your strength is inspiring. Remember to take care of yourself. This fight is tough, but you're tougher. I smiled, the exhaustion momentarily lifting. Thank you, Maria, I'm learning that the hard way. Each action we took chipped away at Mark's defenses. The freeze on his accounts restricted his movement, the legal letters sowed doubt among his allies, and the mounting evidence left him cornered. He was no longer the untouchable brother who'd once manipulated our family, it was clear he was on the defensive. In those moments, I understood that victory wasn't just about punishment. It was about reclaiming control, setting boundaries, and demanding respect. I had transformed from the sister who took the fall into the architect of justice, using intelligence, patience, and resolve as my weapons. And as the legal battles raged, I remained calm, never losing sight of the goal. Because I knew this was my moment to rewrite the story, to prove that even the deepest betrayal could be met with unwavering strength and strategy. The day of the confrontation arrived with a tension so thick it felt almost tangible, like a living thing pressing down on everyone in the courtroom. The air was heavy, electric with anticipation. Months of preparation, silent gathering of evidence, and strategic moves all boiled down to this moment. Mark and I faced each other across the room, the past and present colliding in the sharp lines of our gazes. This was more than a trial, it was a reckoning. The judge called the session to order, his voice steady but commanding. We are here to review the evidence in the matter of Clara Reynolds versus Mark Reynolds. Both parties will present their final arguments. The room fell silent except for the rustling of papers and the quiet shuffle of lawyers preparing. Mark's lawyer spoke first, his tone aggressive. Your Honor, this entire case rests on circumstantial evidence and hearsay. My client denies all allegations of embezzlement. The supposed proof presented is fabricated and manipulated by Miss Reynolds, who has her own motives. He cast a pointed glance in my direction. This is a vendetta, nothing more. I met his accusation with calm resolve. When my turn came, Rachel stood beside me, her presence steady and reassuring. Your Honor, the evidence speaks for itself. We have bank records tracing illicit transfers directly to Mr. Reynolds. We have emails where he coordinated these actions under false pretenses. Testimonies from forensic accountants confirm the fraudulent activity. This is not conjecture, it is a carefully documented pattern of betrayal. Mark shifted uncomfortably in his seat, eyes flickering with something I couldn't quite place, fear, perhaps, or the realization that the walls were closing in. The hearing grew tense as witnesses were called to testify. The forensic accountant detailed the layers of deception, breaking down complex financial schemes in clear, understandable terms. Each piece of testimony reinforced the narrative I'd spent months building, a narrative of calculated fraud, deception, and broken trust. Between testimonies, Mark's lawyer attempted to discredit witnesses, poking holes in their statements with aggressive questioning. But the witnesses held firm, their expertise undeniable. The cracks in Mark's defense widened. When it was time for Mark to speak, he rose slowly, a forced composure masking his agitation. "I never intended for things to go this far," he said, voice strained. "Yes, mistakes were made, but my sister took advantage of me. She's using this trial to destroy me." I felt the sting of betrayal all over again, but my voice remained steady when Rachel motioned for me to speak. Mark's words are a last-ditch attempt to deflect responsibility. The truth is in the records and the sworn testimonies. I took the fall to protect my family, but I refused to be silenced any longer. The judge's gaze shifted between us, weighing the gravity of the moment. This court acknowledges the seriousness of these accusations. All evidence will be considered carefully before a final decision is rendered. As the session ended, Mark avoided my eyes, his usual arrogance replaced by a pale resignation. The room buzzed with whispers and speculation, but I stayed composed, aware that the hardest part was still to come. Outside the courthouse, my parents waited, their faces etched with worry and hope. My mother reached out, squeezing my hand. "No matter what happens, Clara, we are proud of you." My father nodded. "You've shown strength none of us could have imagined." Later, as I sat quietly in the back of a cafe, Raj joined me, offering a rare smile. "You held your ground today, not many could." I sighed, exhaustion creeping in. It's not over yet, but it feels like the tide is turning. Rachel called with updates throughout the week, each message filled with fragments of strategy and legal jargon. "The judge is impressed with the thoroughness of our case," she said. "Expect the verdict soon." During this waiting period, I found solace in the support of friends and colleagues. Linda sent a message, "You inspire me every day." "Keep going," Maria checked in regularly, reminding me to take moments for myself amid the storm. As days passed, I reflected on the journey, how betrayal had shattered trust, yet also forged a new strength within me. The courtroom battles were more than legal skirmishes, they were tests of resilience and will. When the final verdict was finally announced, it was the culmination of all that struggle. The judge's voice rang clear. "Based on the evidence presented, this court finds Mark Reynolds guilty of embezzlement and orders restitution and incarceration." The weight of those words settled over the room. Mark's face paled and he lowered his eyes, no longer defiant but defeated. I stood quietly, a wave of relief and resolve washing over me. This was the moment I had prepared for, the moment when truth overcame betrayal. Outside, my family gathered around me, their embraces a testament to the battles fought and won. The path ahead remained uncertain, but for now, justice had been served, and I had reclaimed my life, not through anger or vengeance, but through unwavering strength and intelligence. This confrontation marked not an end, but a beginning. A beginning of healing, rebuilding, and a future shaped by the choices I had made, and the courage I had found within myself. The courtroom emptied slowly, the echoes of the verdict still lingering in the air. Outside, the world felt different, sharper, clearer. Mark's conviction was no longer just a legal outcome. It was a turning point, a reclamation of my dignity and truth. The burden I'd carried alone for so long was finally lifted. My parents stood beside me, their faces a mixture of relief and quiet pride. My mother's eyes glistened with tears as she whispered, "You did it, Clara, you saved us all." My father's strong hand on my shoulder was a steady anchor. "You showed strength we never knew you had." At work, the news spread quickly but with respect. Linda approached me in the office with a rare warmth. "Clara, your professionalism through all this has been extraordinary. We all admire your resilience." Raj nodded in agreement, offering a small smile. "You came back stronger." "That's what matters." The company began taking steps to recover the lost funds, guided by the evidence I helped expose. Colleagues who once whispered in doubt now looked to me as a leader who had faced adversity and emerged victorious. Mark's world was irreversibly changed. The sentence meant loss of freedom, reputation, and trust. Rumors circulated about his regret, but in the end, actions spoke louder than words. He was a cautionary tale of betrayal and consequences. Social circles shifted. Some friends distanced themselves, wary of scandal, while others rallied around me, offering support and encouragement. It became clear that true loyalty reveals itself in hardship. Most importantly, I began to rebuild myself, not just professionally, but emotionally. The scars of betrayal were deep, but they also etched lessons of strength, wisdom, and self-worth. As I stepped forward into this new chapter, I carried with me the knowledge that justice isn't always swift or easy, but with patience, intelligence, and unwavering resolve, it is attainable. This victory was not just about sending my brother to prison. It was about reclaiming my life and forging a future shaped by resilience and hope. The days following the verdict felt like waking from a long, suffocating dream. I was no longer defined by betrayal or false accusations. I was free to rebuild on my own terms. My life, once fractured by deceit, was slowly stitching itself back together, stronger and wiser. At work, new opportunities began to unfold. Linda approached me one morning with a proposal. "Clara, we're launching a new division focused on fraud prevention. With your experience and insight, you'd be the perfect leader." Her confidence was a balm to my weary spirit. I accepted, seeing it as a chance not only to advance professionally, but to transform pain into purpose. Family dynamics shifted too. My parents, once guarded and anxious, now expressed admiration for the woman I'd become. Anna, my sister, stood closer than ever, offering support without judgment. Even Mark's absence created space for healing, reminding me that sometimes growth demands painful distance. In quiet moments, I reflected on everything I'd endured, how betrayal had tested my limits, but also how it revealed reservoirs of strength I never knew I possessed. I realized resilience wasn't about avoiding hardship. It was about facing it with intelligence, grace, and unyielding resolve. One evening, Maria and I shared a late dinner. She smiled warmly. "You're an inspiration, Clara. Your story reminds me that even the darkest times can lead to new beginnings." I nodded, feeling a calm certainty. We don't control what happens to us, but we do control how we respond. That's where our power lies. Looking ahead, I felt hope, not naive optimism, but a steady, enduring belief in the future I was creating. The past would always be a part of me, but it would no longer define me. This journey taught me that true strength comes from within, fueled by preparation, courage, and the refusal to be broken. And as I stepped into the next chapter, I carried with me a message I hope others will find. No matter the betrayal, no matter the fall, we have the power to rise, and to reclaim our lives with intelligence and dignity.